Hey guys, welcome to The Road You Leave Behind here on Outsider. I'm your host, Marty Smith, and we have an amazing show for you in episode 8 with Craig Morgan. His path is amazing. He's a great American. He's a patriot, a veteran of the United States military, and I got to spend a lot of time with him, about an hour, discussing his path to country music superstardom. Y'all are going to love this episode. Craig's an amazing person. We discuss his military background. We discuss what his service to the country means to him, and he was also very vulnerable in discussing the tragic passing of his son. I think you guys will learn a lot. You'll be inspired by this episode with Craig. Enjoy it. This is The Road You Leave Behind.
There he is. What's up, man?
How you doing?
Man, I'm a blessed man. How about you?
I'm well.
I appreciate your time, man. I know you're busy. It's a great pleasure to get to spend time with you. My producer, Sam, is on as well, and he's going to record this.
Sure.
First, it's a real pleasure for me to welcome Craig Morgan to The Road You Leave Behind here on Outsider Media and Outsider.com. I want to start with growing up outside of Nashville, brother. What was your upbringing like? Grew up what, about a half hour outside of Nashville?
About an hour.
About an hour, right?
Yep, 45 minutes to an hour. And I grew up in lower middle class. You know, parents didn't have a lot of money. My dad was a musician. So I kind of grew up in and around the music. Used to meet Buddy Cannon, one of the biggest producers in the business. They used to have breakfast at the C-Bond restaurant every 2 or 3 days or so. Vern Gosling used to come in there. So I grew up, around these people off and on my whole life. But I think growing up around it, I didn't really, it wasn't something that I aspired because it was always there. You know what I mean? It wasn't something I aspired to do. I didn't think. Obviously, I ended up changing my course. God did.
So you're having breakfast with The Voice, just walking around having breakfast with y'all. That's funny.
Oh yeah, I mean he used to eat when he lived out there. He ate at C-Bond at least 3 days a week.
So when did you decide that music was going to be the path? How did that unfold?
I don't know. I'm working on it. It wasn't. I think when I being in the military, when I left home, went to college for a year, and that wasn't for me. Ended up joining the Army. When I was stationed away from home, I think that's when I realized I kind of turned to songwriting. I didn't do it thinking again that it was going to be a living because I was loving the military. I loved being in the Army. I was good at it. But when I would have downtime, I would sit around and write songs, pick guitar, and make stuff up, and I think it was something that was always a part of me. I just kind of half ignored it during my childhood and my young adult. So it wasn't until I got away from home, and I think missing home made me do the things that I had not done or aspired to do as a younger person, or kid, I should say. I was still young then.
What was your dad's career? If he was a musician, what did he play? Where did he play?
He used to play. There used to be an old show called Pop Goes the Country, Ralph Emery show. My dad played bass on that show. He was part of a band. It was his brothers. They were, offered a record deal back. And this is way back. We're talking in the, late 60s, early 70s time frame. So it was a different world then too. And they all decided, they were a family. All of the brothers had families, and they decided that rather than pursue that business again, because it was so much different back then, and not be able to make money, they all opted to do it just for fun and didn't pursue it professionally. And they still did it forever. My dad can still sing like a bird, man.
That's so cool. So he was on that show with Ralph Emery, huh? That's neat, man.
Yeah.
That's the roots. I mean, that's beautiful because that's the roots of the city. That's the roots of the genre in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember going to watch him do tapings at TNN.
Oh yeah.
And I hated to go. I didn't want to go. I remember always fussing as a kid going, I don't want to go up there and sit and blah, 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 and I remember seeing George Jones and Tammy Wynette backstage arguing and stuff like that. It's just a long time ago.
As a little boy, you get to experience that stuff. Isn't it funny how we are as kids? Like, I work in sports, right? Like, that's my life. I go to this event and that event and interview this person and that person. It's blessings beyond my comprehension. My kids don't give a half a damn. They do not care. I mean, they couldn't care less. And it's like, hey, that's Nick Saban. So, like, this is the greatest that has ever done it. Oh, that's cool. But it's just fun. Like, you're backstage with George Jones. How old are you at this time?
Oh, shoot, probably 6, 7, 8 years old. I don't have a lot of memories of my childhood, to be honest, because it's so long ago. And I filled my head up with a lot of other stuff since. I have to do a brain dump every now and then, but that's one that stands out of me as a kid. Another was, we have a place here called Cheekwood, and every year, every December, they do Christmas trees from around the world, decorated from around the world. It's a pretty cool little deal. And I remember being in middle school at some point. I was old enough to be thinking about girls. Let me put it that way. Trying to impress the girls,
That is a line of demarcation in our youth, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And we went to Cheekwood on a field trip from school, and they wanted someone to sing the national anthem. So I said, I'll sing the national anthem. I'll do it. Trying to show off with anything. But after I finished, lo and behold, true story. A lady walks up to me and she says, young man, someday you're going to be a famous singer. And I said, oh, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Blah, blah. My head swelled up because I was a kid, just sang something. That means the girls probably liked it. Well, that lady was Minnie Pearl.
Stop it, man. Really?
Yeah. And I was inducted into the Grand Ole Opry, unbeknownst to anyone, not planned, on Minnie Pearl's birthday.
That is fantastic, Craig.
That's a God thing, man.
That is a God thing. Yeah, that's bigger. That's bigger than you.
I didn't want to be in this business when I first, as a kid growing up. And even when I was in the Army, I played guitar and wrote songs. I loved it. I did it more for fun than anything. But I knew that it was hard to make a living at it, especially in the beginnings, So it wasn't something that I aspired to do as an artist, especially. Now, as a writer, I always thought if I could get a gig as a songwriter, I'd love to do that. And so that's what really helped me to transition away from the military into this business, was the fact that I was offered a publishing deal writing songs. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I don't have near the courage that a lot of these people that pursue this dream of coming to Nashville, when everybody in Nashville is a songwriter and an aspiring artist, but they just leave everything and come up there and try it. I'd have never done that. But for me, I was leaving the military, but I was coming home. So I figured, worst case is at least I'm at home, I'm around family, and then I'll go back in the Army when it don't work. But it worked, and here we are.
But it did work. And I can't wait to kind of get into that. But you say something there that intrigues me. The definition of making it in Nashville could have several different avenues or roads down which you could go, right? So yes. How do you personally define that, Craig? What is making it?
Well, I got to be real careful, because I wouldn't want anyone out there to think that for 1 second that I haven't appreciated every aspect of my career. I get to sing and write songs for a living, and I've paid bills doing that. And that's crazy to me. Anybody in any form of entertainment is blessed beyond anything they can fathom. So I don't take one bit of it for granted. Having said all that, I got in this business for the business. I had a wife and kids, and I needed to make money. And the only reason I pursued it was I knew that if I was successful, I would make a lot more money than I would at anything else that I love doing as well. So that's the reason I pursued it. And fortunately, I was successful enough. And I'm grateful for it. But for me, the success comes in, one thing is the financial success. When you're able to pay your bills and your kids go to college and don't have to worry about college funds because you've busted your butt for the years on the road, those are the things. And when you do other things for other people, but the other thing is, for me as an entertainer, if you take away that aspect of it, if you take away the money aspect, is being a member of the Grand Ole Opry. I don't think there's a greater honor for a country music singer. And for the life of me, I can't imagine someone not caring about that, because it is the cornerstone. It is the foundation. It is a temple piece of our genre. So to become a member of that, and knowing that there are just over 200 members since its inception, only 70 something living members today. That may be, in my opinion, that was when they made me a member of the Grand Ole Opry in 2008, I said, I might be in this business for a little while. Because up until then, I kept waiting to go back in the Army.
Well, you had hit after hit after hit at that time. And we'll get into that. But I want you to walk me blow by blow through that day, since we're on it. That day in 2008, when you show up at the Opry, I presume you have no idea. They typically surprise people with that honor. How did it unfold for you?
Well, they surprised me at a different location. We were doing we were filming a TV special in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, a military installation where I was stationed. I was a paratrooper out there, and we were filming a thing called Back to Bragg, a TV special that was going to air on TV. And that's where John Conley showed up at my show to invite me to become a member. But it wasn't terribly unusual that John was there, because his son had served in the military and was out there. So when I seen him, I thought, oh, he's probably visiting his son. So, and John, I always sing Rose Colored Glasses in my show. I used to do it a lot. I don't do it quite as much, but I still do it some. And in the middle of the song, they had given John, my tour manager and engineer, had given John a mic. And as I start singing the second verse, I'm thinking, damn, I sound just like John. But it was John singing, and he walked up on stage, and it was a cool moment. And then he asked me if I would like to become a member of the Grand Ole Opry, and I just
how'd you react? Did you?
Oh man, I started crying, and it was funny because I was at Fort Bragg with a lot of great Americans who I know in the Special Forces and in the Special Forces community there. And a bunch of those guys were standing to the left of me beside the stage. And I looked over and they were crying. And these are guys that have killed more people than smallpox, more bad guys. Really great American, tough men, And so when I seen that, it was just, man, I just completely lost it.
So 101st Airborne, right? Paratrooper.
82nd.
82nd. Okay.
I did some time with the 101st at Fort Campbell also.
Okay. So how did that happen? Let's walk through kind of your military progression and the perspective. I'm really intrigued by how our life experiences offer us perspective moving forward. And to me, as an American, there is no greater luxury than freedom. I mean, it's the ultimate blessing to be able to walk out our front door every single day and do and go and be and aspire to do whatever in the hell we want if we have the drive and the opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's guys like you and your brothers, by the way, thank you for your service, who offer us that opportunity. So offer me that perspective, Craig, that the military gave you.
Well, you said something, if you have the drive and opportunity, and I hear people say that we're not always given the opportunity. That's true. Sometimes you got to create the opportunity. You got to make the opportunity. And that requires more drive than the standard drive. You got to have the will and the desire to be successful. I'm always frustrated by that when I see people that, talk about how some of the more wealthy, have more, but I know some very, very wealthy people, like really super wealthy people. And these are people that sleep 4 hours a night. They work 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And they never, I know guys that watch 4 TV stations and read 2 magazines at the same time because they're trying to become smarter, faster, and better at whatever it is they're doing. And that's drive, and that's what it takes. So you can't work 8 hours a day and go home and drink a beer and watch TV and expect to be as successful as the guy who's working 18 hours a day, doing all of the extra. So a lot of these guys have to create their opportunity. They take advantage of, and I don't mean in a negative way, they take advantage of every situation that's afforded them and turn it into something. For me, the military taught me something that I don't think you can learn outside of that. And that is that appreciation for that freedom that we experienced. And that was afforded me. And I learned that because of my opportunities to go overseas and see other countries and experience other cultures and see just how fortunate we are. And that's something that, like you said, anything we do in life, we kind of carry those things forward into our next phase of our life, or next, whatever it is we're doing, next job or whatever. For me, being in the military, getting up every morning, doing physical training, studying your job, and you literally trained every day, depending on what your job was. I was a forward observer, so we trained all the time. And when we weren't training on our own, we were training as a group and with the infantry and with other armed services and with other countries. So we were always trying to better ourselves at our jobs. And I'll be honest, I'm a little lazy at that in my music. I'm not as, I don't train with my music as much as I probably should. I mean, I got songs that I wrote that I probably can't play completely on the guitar, and that's just wrong. But I was never like that in the military. But the one thing that it taught me was this great is a sense of appreciation for how fortunate that I am in particular, and my family, and I think us as a nation. Unfortunately, I don't think everyone out there sees that. They don't see it. They, for whatever reason, they're not happy with where we're at. And I'll be honest, we can always improve. We all know that. There's always room for improvement. To say, there's a lot of tensions in our country right now. To say that, there was never a race issue in this country, you'd have to be an absolute asinine imbecile, because it is. And I think there's still racial people in our country, but we're not a racial nation. We're a beautiful country with people who have a passion for human life and love and friendship. Somehow we gotten away from that. And the military showed me that. When I was in the Army, and I was talking to another Army buddy just a few days ago in Florida, we were talking about this. I didn't remember any racial, I didn't care what color the guy was, or I didn't even care much about his religion, as long as he had my six and he knew that I had his, and we did our jobs together and we cared for each other. It was so weird. That dynamic didn't exist for me. And I know it does for some in the military. I've heard some stories, but generally in the main overview, it wasn't an issue like we're experiencing in this country today. And it saddens me to see that. But the military taught me a great deal about how fortunate we are. And I've carried that forward today. As we progressed in my career, when I first started, man, I was happy to sing in the PX in the frozen food section, just so somebody could hear my new song, And as we progressed in our career, we get a little less tentative to that. Well, we would prefer not to sing in that. We're going to wait until we can sing on the stage. But sometimes we have to look back and reflect, and we have to be real careful not to overinflate our value, and we also have to be careful not to undervalue our product. But the military taught me that no matter how difficult it may be at the time, you still got a mission to accomplish.
What's a forward observer do?
Calls for fire. We call for and adjust indirect fire. So any bullet that's sent to the battlefield that's not fired from a direct fire asset, like a weapon, shoulder fired. So mortars, artillery, close air support, naval gunfire, any type of firepower that hits the battlefield. I was the guy on the ground telling those big guns and the aircraft where to shoot. Lasing targets, doing all that kind of stuff.
So when you have that kind of job for 10 years, right? You were in for 10, and I know you were in reserves for another almost 10, right?
Yeah, 7.5. That was active reserve too.
Active reserve. Okay. So when you have that kind of job where you're directing artillery where to land, where you're basically directing your guys where to send the stuff.
Yeah.
How does that impact your perspective on, like, other jobs. Like other jobs have to seem so boring and like useless when you have that kind of job.
Yeah, you pick up hobbies where you're doing things that are similar.
You're right.
I
Blowing
do
a
a
bunch
lot
of
of,
stuff up all the time.
I love to hunt, and I also work with a couple of organizations dealing with human trafficking. So I still keep myself mentally, physically, actively employed in the arena to some degree. I try to, I stay busy. But I will say this, the longer I'm away from that, the harder it is to be that guy still.
Mm-hmm.
But people ask me, how did I transition from the military into what I'm doing now? And it's not a joke. I literally tell them I'm still working on it. Because when you do that for so long, it becomes such a big part of who you are that it's like you said, the other stuff can be a little mundane, and everybody's, oh, it's a big deal. We got to show, and it's so loud or whatever. Like, no, a 105 millimeter howitzer going off 60 yards from your OP,
Right.
that's loud. When it's so loud, your ears bleed.
You're still so committed to championing the military. And I know you've done countless USO tours and shows for our troops who are actually in conflict and that type of thing. Why is that important to you to give back that way? And what do those guys say to you when you're giving of your time like that?
I think it's so important for us as a society to support those men and women who are willing to put themselves in harm's way for us to keep that freedom. Because here's what's important. When we talk about freedom, we talk about our religious freedoms. We talk about our financial freedoms. We talk about all these things. None of that stuff, none of those things will happen if we are not a free nation. History is what it is. It is, and it's true. It is a truth. These countries where they lose their freedom of any freedom, but in particular, they lose their sense of freedom. They no longer have religious rights. They no longer have rights to protect themselves. They no longer have all these things that we still have as a free nation. And, I've heard you can see there's people that will talk about other free nations that might live a more socialistic style of life, but they don't have the freedoms that we have. You go to various countries in Europe, you can't walk out of your house and go squirrel hunting and do the kind of stuff that we can do. I mean, it's just insane. And the problem is it's due to ignorance. Most people don't know. So that freedom is so important. And we as a nation must absolutely make sure that we are supporting those men and women that are doing that are willing to put themselves in harm's way, because they're not, unlike all of us who are here at home working jobs and doing that, they're not making that kind of money. They're doing it because they love their country and they believe that what they are doing is adding to or in some way supporting what is needed in order for us to maintain that freedom. So we have to do it. And to answer your last question, when we go do those shows, I'm always just humbled beyond words, because we're there to let them know how much we appreciate what they're doing and to support them and tell them we love them and entertain them. And as the USO says, maybe get their headspace back home for just a minute, even though they can't go home, make them feel like a little bit of home is coming to them. But I'm always humbled because without fail, every one of them want to thank us for what we're doing. And it's like, no, bro, this is nothing. This is what we do. We do this at home. So it's actually more fun to do it here to tell y'all. And so it's very humbling to be around them.
What happened in the interim between your military service full-time and transitioning to a full-time life in music? What was that interim period?
There was none.
There was one to the next.
I was absolutely, I got the publishing deal while I was still in the Army. So I started writing songs while I was in. I was coming home every time I'd get a 4-day weekend. I would do writers' nights and meet up with other writers. Writers would come and meet me in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and we would write songs. And I literally left active duty one day. The next day I reported to Fort Campbell for my active reserve. And I was stationed there, working there. I was going into work and going to the studio and writing songs and cutting a record.
Wow. Fort Campbell's what, an hour away
Yeah.
from Nashville?
Yeah,
Something
about
like
an
that.
hour.
I went there one time a couple years ago in my ESPN life. We do a huge Veterans Day initiative every year. And I went to Fort Campbell, and the 101st guys like put me on this humongous platform, and I had to try to rappel down the platform. And it was probably the most awkward damn thing they've ever seen in their life, but they were really kind to me, and they didn't make too much fun of me. But, you know, seeing what they do, it's just so humbling. I mean, it really makes you feel small and offers great perspective on what they're doing to make sure that we can have the lives that we have. So super grateful. Well, so where you really came onto my radar was Almost Home. You know, I'm sure that's I'm not alone in that. I'm sure that was where you entered a lot of people's mind and radar. That's a really unique song. What inspired you to write it?
Well, I had the idea when I was out on the road. My wife was calling me, telling me, I need to come home. And I said, look, just relax. It won't be long. I'm almost home. And I literally wrote that down. And I thought, man, that might be a good idea for a song. When I got back, I had a writing session with Kerry Kirk Phillips, a guy that I'd written with quite a bit, and just a wonderful writer, super human being. And I was telling him about it. So we started writing on it. And it developed into what it turned into over about a 3-month period, because we would write a little bit. I'd go out on the road. I'd come back. We'd write a little bit. Some days I'd go in to write and we wouldn't write nothing. We'd have lunch and then I'd go back home. And so, but just, yeah, it ended up being what it is. And it truly was one of those unique songs. This is a funny story about that song. I left it after we had finished. I left there, and Phil O'Donnell, we call him Phil Billy. He was my guitar player. And, he and I were real good friends, and he and I were actually going to be working on that record together. I wanted him to come in and help me produce the record, because I knew I needed someone to help me with my vocals, because it's kind of hard to sing and listen to yourself at the same time, believe it or not. So I told him about the song. He said, well, read it to me. And I was headed home and I read it to him. And he said, man, you know that 40 acres I got over in Hickman County that you've been wanting? I said, yeah. He said, I'll give you that 40 acres for half of your publishing on that. I said, well, man, you ain't even heard it. You don't even know the melody. He said, I just love what it says. And I said, man, I can't do that to you. I said, I can't do it. That ain't right. It wouldn't be fair, man. I thought I'd be cheating him. But he knew something even I didn't know.
He definitely did. I mean, you talk about resonant songs. How did it impact your life? How did that specific song? I'm sure there's a series of breaks that come. Anybody that makes it at all commercially in Nashville, there are breaks upon breaks upon breaks. People that believe in you when maybe you didn't believe in yourself, all that kind of thing, right? But Almost Home was a monster breakthrough for you. So define its impact in your life.
Well, when I was first starting as an artist, and before Almost Home, I had 2 singles that were top 40. Mm-hmm. That did okay, did videos on both of them, was on Atlantic Records, and then Atlantic Records shut down. So along comes Almost Home, and I'm on a new label. And what that song did for me, it was back then, we didn't have social media like we do now. We didn't have Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. We just didn't, it didn't exist. So the only way for us as artists to come in contact with the fan base, having not doing shows, was through country radio. And so the only way that country radio, you would hear it, is if country radio decided to play it. So that's what that was a song that country radio played, and they played a lot, and it became a huge radio hit for us. And that's what that does. So that opened up all the doors. It got the attention of the radio industry. And then we were very fortunate to follow up with some other hits on the next album.
You note all those different avenues now for young artists, for all artists, but specifically for young artists coming up. I mean, there's all those ones you mentioned on the social media side. There's YouTube. You can put out your own original stuff and have a built-in audience. And certainly then there's Spotify and Apple Music and all the streaming services too. How would you define how all of that opportunity has changed the industry?
Oh, well, you have people that can make a living in the business without ever having a song played on the radio now, because of all those digital platforms that you just mentioned, in particular Spotify. It takes a lot more, takes more plays. per se to get it, but the money is there now. And so, and guys are becoming artists without record labels and without country radio. They're identifying themselves as singers and selling music through all of those different platforms. And then a record label signs them. So it's a lot like television. Used to television was great for that. Remember what was that? The Lone, not Lone Star.
Nashville Star.
Yeah.
Miranda Lambert was on that show, I think.
So Nashville Star was a big deal because it launched careers. And I mean, and now look at what The Voice, I mean, it's just unbelievable what these TV shows. Well, you don't even have to have that. And radio was all we had. Now with all these other platforms, man, they can get their music out. They can start developing a fan base.
Would it have been, so what's easier? I mean, I don't even know how to define easier, Craig. I don't know if that's the right way to ask the question, but what's better? Does having all those avenues dilute the product at all?
I don't think so. I think it could. You just got to be careful. I think I alluded to that a while ago. You got to not undersell or oversell yourself. You got to find that happy medium. And that's a difficult thing to do, especially as a young artist coming up, which is why the record label management, those things were kind of important, because there was a lot of advice, and you could take it or you didn't have to take it, but at least you had a wall to bounce things off of, where nowadays it's, this. But I will say it's a global wall that you can bounce things off of, and it's instantaneous feedback. That's the big thing with this social media platform. You can play a song and go, hey, what do y'all like about this? And if 100 people happen to see it and they respond and 80 of them love it and 20 of them don't, I'm going with those odds. That's good odds.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good, that's so true, man. I was talking to Travis Tritt on this same podcast, and he was talking about how many guys kind of in his era, as it were, are going to TikTok in droves because of that instant feedback. They can throw ideas out there. They can throw new song concepts out there, maybe even throw new songs out there. And they have this instant feedback that lets them know, cut this thing right now and ship it. And it's just fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me how much it's changing the industry. And so back to your career, you've always had this way of choosing songs of greater depth. And, I know Redneck Yacht Club ain't one of those, and I know International Harvester ain't one of those, but things like It Ain't Nothing, right? Things like It's What I Love About Sundays, like those songs have a little greater depth. What is it about songs like that prompt you to go, yeah, that's me?
But I think I draw off of life. You said, like Redneck Yacht Club, International Harvester, those aren't real deep songs, but those are very much real life songs. If I had a nickel for everybody that came up to me and said, man, we got our own Redneck Yacht Club in our party cove over in Missouri. And, that's life. I always tell people I'm a Redneck Yacht Club Saturday night. And that's what I love about Sunday morning. It's real life. This ain't nothing. Those are true stories. Might not be my true story, but they're true stories, and it's real life. So I think anytime, for me personally, the music that I pick and I try to find music that the majority of the fan base can relate to. Not everybody that listens to country music is going to relate to every country song, but I try to sing music that they can relate to, that they can feel good about, or strikes an emotion that makes them want to hear it. Because ultimately, if we're not selling music or they're not playing it, we have to be creating a source of revenue some way, or we're not going to be here very long. So, and the way to do that is by writing and recording music that the majority of the fan base wants to hear.
And is that, how much of that is kind of a separating factor or determining factor in country music, that relatability factor?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, like for me, it's 99%, you got to be able to, for me, not everybody does that because, some guys have a different lane they're in. Some guys are in a real thin lane. I feel like my lane is a lot wider than a lot because I don't mind singing a Redneck Yacht Club and singing the Father, My Son, the Holy Ghost. I don't mind being personal with that. But I'm also not a guy that, I've got friends that are writers that, oh man, this is my baby, and the guys get real sensitive if you change a word or, it's like, man, it's a song. It's not the end of the freaking world.
So
and I'm a writer, so I know that. But like, I've had songs recorded by the artists and go, man, I love what they did. And they changed everything. Like I could care less. Mail me the money.
Yeah, man. Show me that paper, right? You mentioned the Father, my Son, and the Holy Ghost. I got to dive into that and everything that came with it. First of all, I just want to say to you, since I can look you in the eye virtually, but the courage that it took to share that part of yourself and that piece of your soul with the world was very, very moving and very emotional for anybody who has had the opportunity to hear that song, and certainly anyone who's had the opportunity to see you sing that song. What was the personal challenge for you to get to the place where you could do that?
Oh, I'm not in that place, man. That was a God thing. I don't know that, when you lose a child, and I could say this, and I've spoke with other couples who have lost children or had children die. Man, your whole world is forever changed. It's not something you get over. It's not something you get used to. You just get better at dealing with it on a daily basis is all. So for me, I'm not courageous at all. In fact, I'm super weak, dude. That's a God thing. And I'm more scared of God and not doing what he might want me to do than I am of my own inadequate personality traits, which is why I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem singing it when I can sing it. There are days when I know I can't do it when we're doing a show and I tell the band, we're not doing this tonight. I just don't have it in me. I don't have the energy. I put a lot of energy into my show, into my singing. And that song takes so much out of me physically that it's almost hard to continue afterwards. It just takes a lot of energy to try to restrain my emotions because of what it's about. It's just that simple. It's as true to life as anything I've ever written or experienced. So it's a difficult song to sing. And every time I sing it, it just, it's like, ripping the wound back open again as it healed. It feel like it might be healing a little bit and it just rips it wide open. But I'm okay with that. I'm not as concerned about what people think about me as much as I am concerned about what God wants from me. And now again, that don't mean I'm any good person. I'm not trying to say I'm a good dude or nothing. I'm just saying that's where my head is. And that's where it'll be until I get to see him again.
Well, I appreciate your humility about it, but it is extremely courageous. And it's courageous because you're willing to do what you believe the Lord is guiding you to do. And I would have to imagine that parents who've experienced such a awful tragedy must reach out to you, that those words are a vehicle for them in some way as well. Is that accurate? Does that happen?
100%. More so than anything I've ever recorded. I've never received feedback on a song like we did on this song and still do today. It's mind-boggling. And it's a song that country radio did not play. That song became the most downloaded song on iTunes 4 times in a row. First time it's ever happened in any genre. So, and that was without country radio playing it. So that tells you something about what God can do. And no matter what we think we're doing or whatever, he can take something that everybody says will not work and make it be just dumb. But the thing is, that's why I take comfort in doing it, because I know that there's people out there that need to hear it. And it's been very humbling to get the remarks where people talk about how, I had a man, there's a couple in particular, but one that stood out in the beginning early on. He hadn't lost a child. He said he dropped his kid off at school and he was listening to it on the radio, on satellite radio. He said he pulled over and started crying. He went back to the school and checked his daughter out of school. He said, I went and checked her out because I was going to spend that day with her. That's what it did to me. And he said, I haven't lost a child and I can't fathom that, but that song made me want to do everything I can to spend more time with my kid. And I've talked to other parents who've lost children. I talked to a lady, lost a child 5 years previous and said she hadn't stopped drinking since that child, but she no longer drinks. After hearing this, she knows that there's hope. But that's not me. That ain't me that did that. That's God. Every time I'm on that stage, man, and I sing that song, beforehand, I say a little quick prayer for him to hold me up, because sometimes it's so difficult. I mean, it literally, my knees get weak and my chest hurts. But he gives me strength. I get through it. And then we just keep moving forward.
So I'm going to ask this, and you can, first of all, say if it's too much, you just tell me. I have no qualms, but I'm close with Kyle Petty. I covered NASCAR racing for many years, and Kyle, of course, lost his son Adam in an auto racing accident in 2000. And I used to ask Kyle. I asked Kyle once, "Why do you keep driving? Like, what do you keep driving for?" And being in the number 45 car made him feel closer to Adam. And so I wonder, does the opportunity to share that gospel, because that's really what it is, Craig, share that gospel with your fans and the world, make you feel closer to your son?
It probably does. I mean, I don't think about it. I just kind of do it. But, my wife and I, we talk about Jerry Steele, and maybe that's why singing that song brings him to the forefront of my conversation, even though I'm not telling people about my son. In doing that song, everyone out there knows, like the song says, I know he's not here, but he ain't gone. And so yeah, it probably does. It probably does. And I took a year or so off after Jerry died, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to sing again or come back. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I realized that, he would never want me to be like that. In fact, if I started getting, and I started getting I started gaining weight and getting lazy and just kind of down. I wouldn't say I was depressed, but I was extremely sad because of everything, and I just wasn't sure what to do and how to deal with it properly, I guess. And I thought about it. I thought, man, he would be so disappointed in me if I didn't try to be everything that I could possibly be at all times. And that's because that's what he did. So, that right. Knowing that, I pushed myself to not be the guy that people felt sorry for. Instead, I want people to see me and go, man, whatever he's reading, drinking, eating, I want some of it. So, and I feel that way stronger now than I ever have, because if I'm not doing that, then I'm not doing God the justice he deserves.
Well, you can think whatever you want, brother. That's courage. And it's inspiring to me, and it's inspiring to a whole lot of other people. So thank you for that courage. No real easy way to transition, but I do wonder what's going on now, and what's ahead for you here. I know you have a new TV show too, right?
Yep, working on. I'm actually working on a new outdoor show that I'm on the second season now of this outdoor show, which is a lot of fun. It's not just me. I'm working with some other guys. It's called On the Road Outdoors, OTR Outdoors. It's awesome. We have a lot of fun. So there's not as much pressure on me to try to accomplish something as much, because there's 3 other guys that are there as well most of the time. Doing a lot of made-for-TV movies, if you can believe that.
Are you, man?
Man, I'm in some Hallmark movies, and
are you? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
I love it.
What kind of parts are we playing here?
I played a Christmas movie where I played the part of an older brother who was trying to set the younger brother straight. He was in love with the girl. So it was a supporting role. I played the part of, what was that other one I did? Let me see. Oh, I played a military commander, which was an easy role for me.
I'll say you had that down, Pat.
Yep. I was the commander of a unit that helped process service members out of the military into civilian life. But I was the military liaison for that office, opposite with Jana Kramer. So that was a fun movie. I did Rizzoli and Isles, that TV show. I did that a couple times. Done a few things. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Got a new movie. I just got, I can't say this one yet. I may have another movie coming up. I'll find out when the offer comes in a few days.
Well, that's so cool, man. Having that kind of diversity in your career and whatnot is invigorating. I know I'm really blessed with a lot of diversity in mine too. And it definitely keeps you hopping. It keeps your mind really sharp, which I love.
I think that's very important, but having done the music now for 20 years, and I still absolutely love it. And there's days when I can't write enough. I love writing. And sometimes a melody or an idea gets in my head, and I'll call some of the guys now and go, hey, come on over. We got to write this now. And I haven't felt that in a long time. I'll be honest. When my son died, it was just, I didn't feel like doing that. I didn't have that energy to pursue a new song as much. When I wrote the Father, My Son, and Holy Ghost, I mean, I literally woke up at 3:00 in the morning, went down to bass song. It was a God thing, but now I have that excitement to write more, and I think a lot of that comes from during the pandemic. We had to diversify to some degree. So
no doubt.
In doing these other things, it created this, my creative juices got flowing a little more. And so it got me a lot more excited about getting back out on the road. And, even now we're still not fully out there touring, and we won't be until probably August, July and August, we'll start doing more shows. So it's exciting to do those kind of things, to diversify a little bit and, keep the creative juices flowing.
Last thing, and I'll let you run, brother. You talk about going and playing shows. For those of us who are passionate country music fans, I can't wait. I mean, I can't wait to feel that energy again, because there's no energy like artist and crowd. I mean, it's just the best energy. What kind of void was that for you during the pandemic when even if you wanted to go play a show, you couldn't?
Yeah, it was weird, because the Grand Ole Opry kept running. So we did the Grand Ole Opry a few times without a crowd. Super odd. We did these. I did this thing called Fridays at 4, where we played live on Fridays at one or every other Friday, or one Friday a month, something like that, during the pandemic, just to kind of keep the music out there to some degree. It was really weird, and at first I was like, man, this pandemic thing is awesome. It's like a forced vacation,
It
It
was awesome for about 1 week.
Oh no, I was good for a few months, man. I was ready I needed it. But then it's like, man, is this thing going to last? I mean, surely we're going to come out after years. Like, oh my gosh, man, we were so starving to go work, just because you're right. There's nothing me and you can talk like this, but there's a different energy when we're sitting beside each other.
No doubt. I can't
and
wait.
You can feel that. It's hard to explain to people, but you can feel that energy. And it's a different dynamic. So magnify that times 100 for the stage performance stuff. So when we got back out, and we just recently did a couple acoustic shows, and we got big shows coming up, man, it's a wonderful feeling. And it just humbles me that much more, makes me that much more grateful for what we get to do.
Well, I can't wait to see you back out there, brother. And I can't wait to be back immersed in the live show form. I'll tell you, just as an aside, I was at the Kentucky Derby last weekend, covered that for ESPN, and there was about 70,000 people there. And it felt so beautiful, because you could just sense it. Everybody there felt the same way, that, oh my God, here's this energy again. We have live event energy, and it just felt amazing. So can't wait to see you back out there. And I'm so grateful for you, brother, and your vulnerability and your honesty and your truth. So thank you for spending time with me, Craig.
Thank you, buddy. Make sure everybody that you talk to, they can check us out on all the socials. I wished I could tell you I knew. I think CM All Access is my Twitter and my Facebook, my TikTok, which I got to tell you, dude, that is a lot of fun, but you can get in a TikTok hole.
You see, I don't do it. I don't, my wife wants me to have it. I don't want it. Craig, I hate, I understand in our world, the more social media, the better, quote unquote.
But what else are we going to do? I'm just tired of all the different things, huh?
I hate it. I mean, I hate it, man. But whatever. It's part of the entertainment world, I guess.
It is. It's part of the gig, man. But my wife hates the TikTok thing. And man, I have more fun trying to get her to do a TikTok with me because she won't do it. She'll run away from me and stuff. It's the funniest thing. You'll have to follow me if you don't do it for no other reason, just to check that out.
I will for sure. Appreciate you, brother.
Told you guys it was amazing. Thanks so much to Craig for taking the time. Thank you guys for listening to The Road You Leave Behind. We have so many amazing episodes to come. Trace Adkins and Chase Rice are coming up in very short order. Also Lee Bryce as well. We have a brand new studio that we're building in Nashville, and so you won't have to see me standing in front of the castle here at Disney for too much longer. We are so grateful for your passion for this project, guys. Thank you. Please subscribe, rate, and review. It matters to us and what we're trying to build here at Outsider. Again, thank you so much to Craig Morgan, not only for his vulnerability and his passion, but for his service to the United States of America. We live in the greatest land. We are free. I do not take that for granted, and it's people like Craig and all of his brothers and sisters in the military that allow us to go and do and become whatever we want to. This is The Road You Leave Behind on Outsider. I'm your host, Marty Smith. We'll see y'all next time around.